Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another vocab video I got for you guys. We have some guided notes to go along with this. This is actually going to be our very last vocabulary lesson for the year. This is our last unit of study, Ancient Greece. So just be prepared for some words that have some Greek origins to it, so they may be a little bit kind of different than the words we're used to, but these words definitely are going to carry throughout our entire unit of study here, so make sure that we are getting down and kind of memorizing, putting these words to memory, because they are going to be popping up time and time again throughout our unit. All right, so let us get started, but before we get into vocab words, I have an ancient Greek riddle for you. So, those of you who can guess the name before my very last slide, come up to Mr. Fritz and tell him what you think the chicken's name is. Quietly, get up out of your seat, put your headphones down, and come and talk with me what you think the chicken's name is, based off of this riddle. So, a Spanish man decides to move his family and start a new life in beautiful Greece. In his home country, he and his wife would make the best gallina de pepotoria, which is I found out is a chicken dish. They would make the best dishes in all of Barcelona. But having moved to this new country of Greece, the Spanish man had very little money to start a new restaurant. All he could afford was one Greek chicken. What was that chicken's name? So, if you think you know, come and talk with me. And the first person in the class to get the name right will get maybe some extra credit points. All right, let's get into it. Our very first vocab word is Acropolis. Acropolis. So, an Acropolis is a high place in a Greek city where usually a temple is located. Most have rocky mounds or hills. So again, this part of the city is located up on top of this kind of hill. Greeks usually build a temple on top. People would be able to retreat there if they were under attack by a rival city. One of the most famous Acropolis is known as the Parthenon in Athens, and this Acropolis is kind of dedicated to the goddess Athena. The people would also walk up and down the Acropolis to give sacrifices to their god. So the Acropolis served many purposes in Greek cities. Our next vocab word is Agora. This is simply just an outdoor market and meeting place. A lot of the Greeks will start to find out they did a lot of things outside, out in the open with the environment. An agora was usually filled with busy shoppers, artisans, merchants. This is kind of where the heart and soul of Greek economy was going on, in the agora. Polis. Our next word is polis. This is another word for a city-state. So polis really just translates to city-state, which is the city, kind of the hustle and bustle, and also the surrounding area around it. Polis literally means city in Greek. The polis of Sparta, here's an example, the polis of Sparta was a military state ready to fight. So not only is it where people are living and where the agora is, where the Acropolis is, but the polis is that surrounding area as well. Oracle. You guys may have heard this term oracle before. This is a priest or a priestess who usually would receive messages from the Greek gods or goddesses, and they would kind of convey this information to kings, emperors, people kind of who are lost within the world. The oracle told me, here's our sentence, the oracle told me that someone would become famous and wealthy. So an oracle is that kind of, that person, the middleman between the people and the gods and goddesses. Hoplite. This is a Greek soldier, a Greek foot soldier. As you can see, their primary weapon was a spear. They would usually have some upper body armor. As you can see, our guy down here, he's missing some leg armor in the thigh right there. Usually, these people weren't super well armored up and everything. So our hoplite fought bravely in battle. Our next word is phalanx. phalanx. This is a battle formation usually performed by a group of hoplites. So the hoplites would organize themselves into the phalanx. A lot of times, as you can see from this model, 8 men across, 16 men deep. And as you can see, the spears that the hoplites have kind of travel where they're up in the back because they're not really being used, and they rotate down. So the front right here is usually where they're going into battle. Say some men fall, you have another man step right up in line, bring their spear down, and ready to battle here. Our next word, another military word, is trireme. Trireme. This is a Greek warship. This is a boat that usually would have a sail, but in case the wind wasn't particularly heavy, they aren't able to move the ship with the sails. They had men rowing underneath that deck of the trireme. So trireme. Athens was known for having many trireme ships in their navy. Philosopher. Philosopher is a thinker who searches for wisdom and asks questions about life. So some famous philosophers during this Greek period that we're going to touch on are people like Plato, Socrates, Pythagoras, and Zeno. Socrates was kind of that really the most famous philosopher. His quotes are still heavily, looked at, and it influenced a lot of people today. So philosopher is just a thinker, someone who questions life. Oh, hey, here's a word we've seen before. Terracotta. Clay used in pottery, and the Greeks would usually use a lot of terracotta in their buildings as well. So they would make houses or structures out of terracotta, out of that fire-baked clay. This is a similar but a little bit of a different recipe than in ancient China. And really, you would be able to find these pots anywhere, and they would be storing a lot of olives or olive oil, which is a very big product that was coming out of ancient Greece. Ostracism. So this is kind of a word taking a little bit away from our nouns and whatnot, but ostracism is sending away unpopular politicians for about 5 to 10 years in ancient Greece. So this was a term that was very much used in politics. So to be ostracized or to have ostracism committed against you is where you're an unpopular politician, go away for 5 to 10 years, but then you get to come back and kind of re-up that job. Today, it would be considered excluding someone from society. So if we wanted to use this word today, it's not necessarily just for politics. Ostracism or being ostracized is today just excluding someone from a group. The leader was ostracized for making too many bad decisions. That's our example. Citizen. Now, this is a word that we've talked about and that I hope you guys carry with you into next year. A citizen in ancient Greek was a free man who had the right to participate in government. I want to make that clear, that a citizen in ancient Greek was a man. Only men could participate in government. The citizen who voted for the leader, he believed was the best for the city-state. So again, citizen, you participate in government. All right, here is the be-all, end-all word of our unit, democracy. This is a political system in which all citizens had a say in running the government. Our example here is Athens had the very first democracy in the world. So that's why we're taking this much time to look at democracy, is because ancient Greeks were the first to do it. If you had an opinion to say, you could have it be voiced and you could make a difference in your government. Yes, there were people who were leaders that had a little bit more power than other people. But again, the people would elect that person. It was all of the citizens that would kind of rally together to run the government. A little step away from citizen and democracy, barbarians. Now, these were foreigners to the ancient Greeks that were thought to be uncivilized. The Greeks thought the barbarians were not equal to them. So really, if you were not Greek, you were considered a barbarian. You were not civilized. You weren't doing what the Greeks were doing. So a barbarian. As you can see here, I got my Clash of Clans guy right here. Symposium is one of our last words here. Symposium. This is a all-male dinner party. The parties were usually forums or big meetings that were used to debate political ideas or plot, different types of strategies to win someone an election, or to really just overall boost Greek culture. Our example here, at the symposium, men discussed politics as they ate and partied. So a symposium was kind of like a gathering, a meeting of the minds of some of the best Greeks to talk, discuss, work through some opinions and some ideas. As you can see right here, there's one man in the very center. This balding man is Socrates. Socrates was a big fan of symposiums, and people wanted Socrates to go to their dinner parties because he was such a brilliant mind. Myth. Now, we are going to be looking at a lot of myths when we get into ancient Greece. This is a traditional story, especially one concerning early history of people, or it was used to explain some natural or social phenomenon, typically involving supernatural beings or events. So as we had talked previously about certain traditional stories, they're usually a way for humans of the time to explain things that science hadn't really been able to explain yet. So being able to have thunderstorms be because a god is angry made sense to the early Greeks. They hadn't quite understood, like, oh, thunderstorms come because of air temperature and how the atmosphere works. That was another couple thousand years before scientists discovered that. But the early Greeks would use stories like myths to explain supernatural or natural things happening. So, for example here, the Greek myths told stories of gods, goddesses, and interactions with the humans of the city-states. All right, here is our last word. And this is one of our essential questions as well. A legacy. A legacy is something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor from the past. So this entire year has kind of been this idea of legacy. When all of this history behind us has happened, how are we taking all of this information and continuing some of those ideas today? The legacy of the Greeks is still felt today in art, in thinking, and in government. I would say one of our biggest legacies from the ancient Greeks is our government, democracy. Alrighty, folks, if you have not finished, please stop, go back in the video to get all of your vocab words. And if you haven't and you think you know what the chicken's name was from our riddle, please go tell Mr. Fritz now. If not, here is our answer. So our Spanish restaurant owner turned Greek only had enough money to buy one chicken, and that chicken's name was Apollo. Get it? All right, folks. Have a good day. Stop, finish up your stuff. Good luck.